Hi everyone and welcome to One Six Figure Focus, and in this video I'm going to outline my top tips for a clean display. Let's get started. Alright, so like I outlined in the intro, this video is all about the tips that I use for a clean display setup. Now I'm not talking about actually cleaning the glass or dusting the shelves or using a little like air hoover or whatever. That's not the purpose of this video. This is more about keeping your display clean in the sense that showcasing the strong features of this of these figures, you know, the paint apps, the head sculpts, the accessories, the different outfits and stuff like that in good lighting, and kind of really showcasing them as best as you possibly can, allowing them a little bit of space to breathe. Now, these are just my tips. This is like what I do for my own display. This may or may not work for you. If you're Detolfs, it's probably a bit more relevant, but even if you're module cases, there are a few things here which you might be able to take, refine, adapt and make your own, or maybe you know them already. Hopefully you get some sort of value from this video, and if you do, make sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Alright, let's get started on this. So this is a picture I've taken maybe about, I think it was about a week ago, yeah, and this is like my current display. It's pretty much the exact same as I have it today. So as you can see, I've got 5 different Detolfs here. These are the white base ones, and obviously these can be bought in IKEA. I'll leave anything I mention in this particular video, I will leave in links to links in the video description down below. So if I'm talking about IKEA Detolfs or Kallax, all of those things, the Luke lights, all those things will be in the links of this video description here. So this is my current setup. You got 5 different IKEA Detolfs, you got some Luke lights on them, and typically I'm using 1 or 2 figures per shelf. So that's the basic look at the moment. Right, so the first step that I have for you, I'm going to go back to the very start. So let's say you've got your Detolfs, or you got your module cases, whatever. You put them together, you're good to go, but you're worried about that bottom shelf. I've heard a lot of people say that your bottom shelf, they're your least favorite figures and they'll be the first to go. There's a bit of truth to that, I'd say. I think if we're being open and honest about it. However, I don't like the idea of a bottom shelf. I like the idea of getting rid of the bottom shelf, and how I do that is by using risers. Now, there's multiple different types of risers. I've seen custom ones. I've seen people use TV stands. People use IKEA Besta or IKEA Kallax. And the idea is that there is now no bottom shelf. I suppose you could argue that there's still a bottom shelf, it's a bit higher, but that's the whole point. You're giving those bottom shelf figures a bit more respect and elevating them to just a bit more of a better eye line, because when they're sitting on the ground, that bottom shelf can be very underwhelming. Also, it's more likely to collect dust. Plus, another advantage of the risers and getting up a bit higher is because it elevates all the other shelves, and then you get that like a lot of I think it's a second shelf from the top with my ones there. You get a nice kind of a good view of eye level, you know. So like when you're standing up, basically my second shelf from the top is at eye level, and then the top one's a little bit higher. So I mean, yeah, there's just multiple different I suppose reasons, or what's the word I'm looking for, advantages of using risers. So you elevate them, there is no bottom shelf, you take those bottom figures a bit higher, gives them a bit more respect. You've also got storage space like you can see here, and you're avoiding that dust getting kicked into that bottom shelf. So risers are my first tip. What I'm using here is, it looks like one solid black piece. What it actually is it's 3 different IKEA Kallax, and they're the ones with 2 holes. And then the boxes they're basically just cardboard boxes that are custom made from them. Again, they're called IKEA, I think they're called Jenas, so it's Tjenas. Someone has corrected me on the pronunciation of that before. If you know the correct pronunciation of that, let me know in the comment section down below. So that's the setup. 5 IKEA Detolfs, 3 2-holed IKEA Kallax, and then 6 of these cardboard white Jena boxes. So that's the first tip. My second tip, Luke lights. Now again, there's a description, and I don't get a kickback for these. I just really like them. I saw Jetta Patrol used to do this thing called the grid, where he had 4 different Detolfs and they were lit with Luke lights, and he used to kind of like just showcase them every now and then. He swapped them out, and I really liked. I've obviously borrowed and taken influence from his display. So these ones, yeah, they're called the Luke lights, and there is 5 kits, 1 per Detolf. So you can get these, I think it's on the lukelight.com. Again, the link for everything in this video is in the description down below. And what these are, they're kind of like daisy chain. You imagine them, they're custom made LED strips specifically for IKEA Detolfs. So what happens is you have a strip with LEDs and they come with a warm tone or the cool white tone that I've gone through. Then you've got then a grey piece of wire, and it's grey to blend in with the grey metal supports, the frames of the IKEA Detolfs. And they even come with grey cable ties so that you can, sorry, correct me if wrong, I'm going to start that again there. The cabling is actually, it's kind of more of a translucent, but the cable ties are grey, and you can actually use the grey cable ties to tie in and attach these wires behind the grey bars to camouflage them. And I think I've done a decent enough job there. So basically you have light strip, wire, light strip, wire, light strip, and wire down to the end. So you got 4 of them, one for each shelf. They also come with diffusers. Now the advantage of diffusers is basically like there's these aluminium channels, and they stick to the roofs of each grid of the IKEA Detolfs, and then you sellotape the strip inside there, and then you clip on the diffusers which come with them. And the advantage of the diffusers, you get a strip of light then, so you don't get that Christmas light effect. And also they direct the light down at a 45-degree angle onto the figures, and that's specifically advantageous to figures with head sculpts, and it casts kind of a shadow on them. That's quite nice. So what I've circled there in the yellow oval, that's just one of these Luke lights. So again, you have 4 different ones, they daisy chain down, and there's a USB at the end, so you plug those USBs into a USB hub. The next thing then is a smart plug. So if you look back at this previous image, just behind me there I've circled the red circle. That's just a smart plug. It connects to your Wi-Fi. So basically, using an app, as you can see here, this is the interface on the app on the right. So I'm using the Netis Smart Life plug. So there's the plug on the left, and then the interface on the right. And all you do then is you, just want to fix this for a second. Let me get this down here. I'll get out of the way. All you do then is you connect it to your Wi-Fi, and then you have the app, you download the app, and anything that you do then, you can turn it on or off, and it just basically communicates with this smart plug to turn everything on. So then you can connect, your adapter to that, and of course in the adapter you might have like your USB hub plugged into that for your Luke lights, or you might have CCFLs or fusion reactors, as we'll see later on in this video. So that's my third tip. Get a smart plug, because it eliminates you having to go in and manually click on a button so that it turns on your display. So I can just walk up and I can be about to do a stream, and as I'm walking in there I can just take out my phone, press a button, or I can put it on timer or something like that, and it just comes on, and I don't have to worry about that. One click, everything goes on. The Luke lights, CCFLs, fusions, and that's the way I like it. So then number 4 then is a USB hub. Obviously I've got 5 different Detolfs, and in those 5 different Detolfs I've got a set of Luke lights. So those Luke lights then have to go somewhere. They're all USB powered, so they're going to plug into a USB hub. So I would have this, all the 5 different USBs, they plug into this particular, this is called I think it's called the Manhattan USB 2.0 port or something like that, multi-port. Again, this is in the description down below. And again, I don't get kickbacks for this or anything, it's just, this is how I put together my, my setup. So the 5 different USBs that come from each of the 5 different Luke light sets, they go into this adapter, and then of course this just has a normal plug that would click into my adapter, which is powered by my smart plug. So click on the app, it turns on the smart plug. Obviously an adapter is plugged into that, and my adapter has like 4 different sockets and 2 different USBs as well. So this would be plugged directly into one of the socket spaces, which is great because I still have 5 USB ports if I need them for something else. Stands. Me personally, this is kind of a controversial one. I don't use stands for the most part, for multiple different reasons. The first reason is, like I said, I want a clean display. I want the realism. I want the shrunken down 1/6 version of these particular characters and figures on the shelf, and I find that the stands, they take me out of it. Also, some of those stands can actually push into the suits. They can leave a mark or crease like that, or damage, potentially expensive figure. Now, of course, there is the other side of that lack of a stand could cause the figure to fall, and it could damage and do a lot more damage, and that's completely fine. Again, these tips are just things that I do to maintain a clean display. I just don't like stands for the most part, and I get rid of them. So I will use stands in certain situations. for example, I've got the in-art Joker there on that stand. I actually really like the look of the stand. It's a very simple, classy looking circular base. Also the fact that it's magnetic, I actually quite like that. I would take a bit of time if you're using those to pose. If you have the in-art Joker or any Joker with magnetic stands, I would pose it first on a normal flat surface that's non-magnetic, and then drop it down, and then even that, do a bit of adjusting to make sure that the feet are flat and that it's the center of gravity is the center of gravity centered, I suppose. So it's not leaning to the left or the right or over and forward. So the stands here, I would just get rid of them. I don't like the look of it. I think they're an eyesore. I think it looks cluttered. However, if you're living on a fault line or somewhere that is kind of somewhere where a lot of earthquakes are prone to earthquakes, or earthquakes occur. Also, if you have if you're living maybe somewhere where the floorboards are creaky and they bounce up and down when you walk, that's going to cause vibrations, cause figures to fall over. Also, if you have young kids running around as well who are liable to, by accident, or on purpose, smash off cabinets and knock things over, that's not going to work. Again, each to their own, but they're not for me. Then number 6, did I skip one? No, 5 I did not, right. Number 6 then is 1 or 2 figures per shelf. Now, this, again, this is not possible for all collectors. Some collectors out there have like 200 different figures and they have a bunch of Detolfs, so they have to put 5 or 6 in, and that's fine. But for me, I don't really collect, I curate. And what I mean by that is I pass on so much stuff that I think looks cool and is aesthetically pleasing. I pass on a lot of the things that I like to collect the things that I love. So I'm a patient collector, and I don't have unlimited space or budget, so therefore I really just gravitate towards the pieces that I really like. And from time to time I have to trim the fat in the collection, and maybe you get a piece that you're thinking, no, that's not something, and I have to move it on. I do sell from time to time, not that often, but for the most part I like to have 1 or 2 figures per shelf. I think when you take away the stands, it allows you to pose more than one and still make it look aesthetic. Also, figures that complement each other pose very well together. For example, if you look front and center here, center Detolf, second from the top, this is kind of like a showstopper, I suppose, a real attention piece. You've got the die-cast Iron Man Mark 6 from Iron Man 2 and the die-cast War Machine Mark 1, also from Iron Man 2. They're both lit up with fusion reactors, the front and center, but it looks very balanced the way I have them posed together. They should go together, they're from the same movie, so it works well. Also then, if you look at, say, the Boba Roba 2-pack there, second Detolf, second from the bottom, just over the Henry Cavill Superman, it would make sense that they're posed together because they're the different versions, the past and the present, of the same character. So obviously same character, but different versions of it. And then over to the right, to the fourth Detolf, second from the bottom, you've got Cable and Deadpool, counterparts, partners, members of X-Force from from Deadpool Part 2. So my point is that one figure per Detolf without a stand is the optimum, but as the collection grows, I'm going to have to find strategic ways of posing figures together in a cube that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to throw the in-art Joker in there next to a Spider-Man, and you're not going to throw Lando next to Robocop. It just doesn't make sense. But when it does make sense, it works that bit better. Again, of course, getting rid of the stands and figures that complement each other, and the posing as well, will make a difference. So the next thing then, accessories and storage. What I used to do is I get rid of the shipper boxes. The shipper box, in my opinion, has one function: to get the figure there for you, shipped there in one piece, and so the art box doesn't get damaged. Right. I just get rid of the shipper box. And then I get these big IKEA boxes, and I take out what I need, pose the figure up, and then I put the extra accessories, keep them in the art box, and I put these art boxes in a big IKEA box, and they go up into the attic so that they're just out of the way, that there's no clutter in the room, and they're protected then if anything happens, there's a leak or something. They're in the big plastic boxes, they're protected. Of course, they're wrapped in the plastic as well that the art box come from. However, what I was finding then is when I wanted to repose something, I had to go up to the attic, which is a nuisance, find the exact box for the figure, which is usually in one of the boxes, which is at the bottom at the very, and it was just a hassle. So what I did was I bought one of these tackle boxes. They're kind of tackle boxes, sometimes they call it accessory boxes. They're in any DIY shop, and they're basically for nails and nuts and stuff like that in different pieces. And in each of these here, these if you look there on the right side there, if you look, say, all these little compartments, they slide out, and they're actually divided by a divider which you can remove. So for figures with a lot of accessory, it might fill up one of these compartments, and then figures with only a few hands and a blaster, you might get away with putting this accessories and parts and spare parts, or outfit change and stuff like that for 2 figures in each of these, 1 on each side. Of course, you can move that little divider inside that as well, so that's quite handy. So that means I don't have to go up to the attic, then I can just go over here, take out the head sculpt I want, or swap out the battle damage parts, or get that accessory or blaster or whatever, and it makes you more likely to do a repose and keeps your collection fresh as well. Number 8 then is cable management. Now I've heard people say, like, they don't like Detolfs because you won't be able to get CCFLs, or you won't be able to get USBs, or you won't be able to get fusion reactors because the wires will look too cluttered. And I can see that point of view, because Detolfs being all glass, that's why I use them, because I can see the figure from multiple different angles. But because they're all glass, then cable management can be a nightmare if you're not doing it clever. So what I do, again, of course, you can see Luke here front and center with that beautiful CCFL USB powered blade. Now, the little wire comes out the bottom of that. It comes out underneath the cloak, and you can obviously see the little wire in the back there. But what I've done is, the Luke lights I mentioned earlier on come with grey cable ties. These tiny grey cable ties. They come with loads of them. And I suppose the idea is to use, as little of those cable ties as possible to cable tie the wires that connect the LED strips of the Luke lights down along the sides of the frames of the IKEA Detolf. So if you look here, trying to give you an example, it's on the left, you can kind of see one poking out there. So if you look at Luke's right here, there's kind of, you can see the grey support connecting the top of that shelf to the bottom, and you can kind of see the translucent wire peeking out there because I haven't tucked that in properly. So there's a zip tie on the top and the bottom. So that's one thing. Those little grey zip ties are handy, and you can get them on Amazon. You can buy packs of 100 for nothing, So what I've done is, the wire comes out the back. Now I want to run this down the bottom, so I've taken a little cable tie and cable tied it there, ran the wire down the bottom, so we're now going down into the bottom, say in the same shelf as Robocop, and that wire is taut, very, very tight, and it's in behind that grey metal rod of basically the structure of the Detolf. And then I drill a hole down the bottom, small hole in the bottom, to feed it out, and it goes into the USB hubs that you've seen already. I think I've done a good job of that. I still think I can probably hide that wire a little more, but it's very, very barely noticeable. So here you can see on the right, you can see it coming out the back of the cape. Very, very, it's barely, though, to be honest. Like, it's not like a mess of wires. It's a tiny little wire. I can live with that. The trade-off basically is, do you want to use the lightsabers that take ages to put the batteries into the arm, and then put the arm into Luke, and then it dies within 5 minutes? Or do you want to be able to come in, click a button, and the CCFL saber not only looks better but stays lit for as long as you want it? And I can live with the little wire there, but again, it's personal preference. The CCFLs can get quite hot as well, but I have mine programmed to 25% brightness. Like, that's 25% there. I think the 50 is nearly too bright, and the 100 is definitely too bright. But they can get quite warm, so that's another reason I keep mine at 25% brightness. So it looks, I actually think it looks best at either 50 or 25 anyway, but it also conserves energy, and plus the main reason is I don't want it getting too warm, because I heard that if you have them on full brightness for short periods of time, it can actually get quite warm, and I don't want it to melt. And that's my first one, so I could be coming back in a few months going, don't get them, they're dangerous, but so far so good. That's just another angle. Of course, that angle you can't even see the little wire on it, so a bit of cable management goes a long way. You can see in the foreground here, like behind Luke is, I think it's just right there, see, just above his hand there, that's the grey support, and I would have basically ran the wire down under his cloak and then cable tied it to, you can't see it behind behind Luke at the back right corner here, it'd be cable tied there, and then ran down to the one below. Right, I'm just going to move myself here so you can see it there. Wire comes out, little grey cable tie, and of course the ends of that I cut off, just because the ends, like a normal cable tie, will stick out for an inch or two. Once I have it in the position I want, I just cut it off, and you can see there, just that wire is actually disappearing behind this rod, and down here you cannot see it at all because of the way that I've kept it really, really tight there. And there's another cable tie at the back right corner of the shelf underneath. So I'm actually quite happy how Luke turned out there. I'm actually buzzing with that saber. Every time I come into the room, it just catches my eye, and this is a fantastic figure anyway. Review will be going up during the week. Now these two These are Fusion Reactors kits. Obviously, I've got, these are both die cast. It's the Mark 6 War Machine, sorry, the Mark 6 Iron Man and the Mark 1 War Machine from Iron Man 2. And I think they look really, really good together. Love the battle damage parts as well. But one of the things that makes this really pop is the fact that they're lit up. Now, if I was to put the batteries in each of these, it could take me an hour, because, you know, my hands are too big and those like little button cells, they're too small. Unless you've got tiny little child hands, it's very hard to get the little button cell batteries into the head, the chest, and both arms. And then if you do that, when you get everything set up and you turn them on, they'll die after 10 minutes. So like, this is much cooler. You go in, you click a button, they come on. So what they have is little dummy batteries. So you have a wire that splits up into 4. One for the head, one for the chest, one dummy battery for the left arm, and one for the right arm. So you can see the Iron Man here is lit up on the eyes, chest. He's actually has an open palm here on the right, but you can't see it's lit up there. And the War Machine's the opposite then. His eyes and chest are lit up, and you can see the left repulsor hand lighting up. Now, that was the first setup, and I'd made a mistake. I didn't leave enough wire. And by the way, I got these from Fusion Reactors on Instagram. I'm really, really happy with the product. I don't get a kickback for mentioning. I'm just really, really happy with the product. But when I tagged him on Instagram after setting this up, he said, like, you know, you can just, if you have a bit more wire, run it down their back legs and do a bit of a tape on it. I kind of had realized I could do that, but then by the time I cable tied everything in, I didn't leave enough slack. So what I did yesterday was I cut the 3 cable ties, gave a bit more slack, and redid it. And if you look at the next photo here, that's what it looks like now. It's a different angle, a slightly different angle obviously, but you see, you can't see any of the wires behind their backs. The Mark 6 here, you can see some of the wires sticking out behind his back, and you can see some slacking down towards the War Machine, and you can see some in between the War Machine's legs as well. Now here, you can see a lot less wire. I still think I can do better with this, because there's 2 wires. I think a little bit of, small bit of black tape to keep those 2 wires in, then it'll be just 1 wire. And I can live with that. Like, again, same thing, cable tie and run it back, so you can't see any of the journey from, you can see the wire here, but you can't see any of the journey of the wire down at the bottom. Another solution is I could put a base on. I mean, you have to, maybe the War Machine base there, and have him putting the foot on a slightly different pose, the foot up on the base, and cover it up like that. I don't think I'm going to do it. I actually really, really like how this looks, and I can deal with that little bit of visible wire. And that's actually the old photo. Looks a lot better now. Okay. Right, so again, this is these are old photos as well. You can kind of see the wire there of the yeah, you can see the wire there of the fusions from the Mark 6. But again, the way I have it set up now, you just can't really see it, or definitely not as much. Right, this is a bit I did a live stream during the week, and I definitely think there is something in this. If you are limited by space like myself, like I can't fit another Detolf in here, and I'm not going to get module cases anytime soon, even though I do actually like them. I think I do prefer the Detolfs though, that 1 figure per shelf look and all glass and the white lights. I think it's a really good way just to showcase the beauty of these figures. So symmetry for me, I think, is a good way of, if you have to add more figures to a cube, as in more than 1 to a cube, if you have to have 2 or 3, where you put those shelves which have 2 or 3 figures is actually quite important. Because you could put the figures of 2 and 3 shelves just to one side, and it would look a bit cluttered and unbalanced, whereas if you space them out correctly, it'll be a lot more aesthetically pleasing. So for example, if you look right here, out of these, there's 5 shelves. Each shelf has, there's 5 Detolfs, and each Detolf has, 4 cubes, so that's 20 cubes. There are 3 of them which contain 2 characters. Obviously this middle one, you have your Iron Man and War Machine. You have the Robot 2-pack I mentioned earlier on the second Detolf, and then of course on the same level on the 4th Detolf you've got the Cable and Deadpool. That's no coincidence. I'm doing that on purpose so that it looks balanced. It looks like a triangle, of course, okay, because the triangles are just more aesthetically pleasing. Now if you think of the down the bottom here, even though there's not 2 figures in this, the Robocop is a big piece. It has basically its own throne, its mechanical chair. So I've put that as a bottom, kind of like an anchor for the display, and kind of form a diamond shape from these. And that might seem a bit mad and majorly OCD, but that actually matters, I think, in order to make the display a lot more aesthetic. Because I think if I just crammed all these 3 different cubes that have 2 figures each, all on the left or on one, it just would look a bit strange. So I do think there's something in that. If you're If you have to add more than one figure per Detolf, maybe consider who you're posing them with. Try to get rid of the stands, and in relation to the other cubes that have 2 or more figures in, where are they sitting? So if I was to extend this out then, and if I had to, I don't know, if I wanted to save a bit more space and I had to pose, say, like another 2 cubes with 2 characters, it would make sense. So that's a triangle there, obviously. It would make sense to pose, maybe pose the Superman, the Batman here on the one on the left, and maybe even Mysterio and Spider-Man on the one on the right. That'll free up the space that Superman was in and the space that Mysterio was in. Now that mightn't actually work, because, you know, I like to use, as you can see, even though I don't use bases that much, I do have the in-art Joker on his base because I really like the look of the base. I have, the reason I'm using the Superman on the base, it's not because I like the base, I actually don't like those bases, but it's because I want him levitating. He's slightly levitating there, and I had to kind of bend the dynamic pole back in front to fit him in, because I don't want him too high or he's going to hit the roof. So I wanted him to levitate, so I was using the stand in that case. And then I felt he had a bit too much height, so I used the stand for BVS. I actually quite like the BVS stand, so it's like in the shape of the bat sim, it's quite cool. So it might necessarily work putting them together if I still want to use the stands. Another thing I'm considering as well, I got the T800 from the Battle Damage 1, the Police Shootout 1 from Terminator 1. And what I'm considering doing is actually moving Deadpool and Cable down to where Robocop is, moving the DX13 over to where Deadpool and Cable were, and putting him in the same cube as the T800 Battle Damage Terminator from Terminator 1, because they would make sense. You know, one representation from T1, one from T2. And then putting the Robocop up where the DX13 was without the chair, because I just need to, I want to kind of pose him holding a gun. I'm kind of a little bit tired of that pose for now. I want to maybe just box up the chair for the time being and put him up there. Plus I heard the back of the knees that Robocop can burst if you leave him like that for too long. So I want to kind of inspect the figure, make sure it's all right, and give it a bit of a repose. And of course doing that then will leave, just means I can get the T800 in as well, and I get to repose the Robocop. So basically, just to recap that, the Deadpool and Cable would go down the bottom where the Robocop is. The DX13 would take the place of Deadpool and the Cable and the T800 Battle Damage Police Shootout Terminator from Terminator 1. And then I get to repose the Robocop up here where the DX13 is in this picture. And of course in a different kind of a pose. Yeah, just again, just fun to kind of engage with them as well. So again, that would create your triangle as well. Now people will probably laugh at that and going, that's a bit OCD, that's madness. But if you are like me and you are limited for space and you don't like to cram figures into a Detolf, well, it could be a consideration that if you have to add 2 or 3 figures, think about where you're putting them. You can still have it nice and aesthetic. I mean, for me, like, I'm the one looking at this 99% of the time, so I'm doing this for me, not for YouTube. But YouTube, it's a handy way to connect and, you know, share your thoughts and stuff like that, and maybe people will actually benefit from it. So yep. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of this video. I mean, I suppose if I give you a bonus tip number 10, yeah, it probably would be get yourself some Windex and some sort of lint-free wipes and a duster, and you can get these little guns. They're like little air guns that can knock dust off things if you're in a particularly dusty environment. Thankfully, I'm not. But yeah, look, I did a live stream on this. And I just thought, like, I kept the slides and I thought, you know, this would make an interesting video. I think it's a video that I'd actually like to watch if I saw the thumbnail. But yeah, look, that's the end of the video. I really hope you got some sort of value from this video. Massive shout out if you've subscribed already. But look, if you haven't and you want to support the channel, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Did this actually help you or not? Do you do any of these things or not? Do you use stands? Are you anti-stands? Do you do one figure per shelf, or do you cram them all in? Are you struggling for space? Definitely leave a comment. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Also, you can follow me on Instagram and follow me on Twitter. That's it. That's the end of the video. See you in the next one. Good luck.